On a chilly December night in 1773, the British colonies in America stood on the brink of a revolution. The air in Boston, Massachusetts was thick with tension. The colonists, who had long endured unfair taxes and laws from the British Crown, were about to make a stand that would change the course of history. The colonists' anger had been simmering for years. They believed that they should not be taxed by a government in which they had no representation. This belief, encapsulated in the cry, "No taxation without representation," became a rallying point for colonial resistance. The stage was set for a dramatic confrontation. The British government's attempts to assert its authority over its American colonies had backfired. The colonists, once loyal subjects, were now prepared to fight for their freedom. The British government had long taxed its colonies to pay for its wars and maintain its empire. The colonists, accustomed to a degree of self-government, generally accepted these taxes as long as they had a say in how they were levied. However, a series of acts passed by the British Parliament in the 1760s, beginning with the Stamp Act of 1765, changed everything. The Stamp Act, which required colonists to pay a tax on all printed materials, from newspapers to legal documents, sparked widespread protests. The colonists argued that the tax was unjust because they had no elected representatives in the British Parliament to voice their concerns. No taxation without representation became the rallying cry of the resistance movement. The British government eventually repealed the Stamp Act in the face of colonial opposition. However, it continued to pass other laws that the colonists found objectionable. The Tea Act of 1773, which gave the British East India Company a monopoly on the tea trade in the colonies, proved to be the final straw. The Tea Act of 1773 was seen by the colonists as a blatant attempt to undermine colonial businesses and force them to accept taxation without representation. On December 16, 1773, colonists disguised as Native Americans boarded 3 British ships in Boston Harbor. Under the cover of darkness, they dumped 342 chests of tea into the harbor, an act of defiance that resonated throughout the colonies. Section 4. The Empire Strikes Back, Repercussions and Retaliation. News of the Boston Tea Party reached London in January 1774, and the British government was outraged. Prime Minister Lord North denounced the act as violent and dangerous, and vowed to punish the colonists for their defiance. The British government responded swiftly and harshly to the Boston Tea Party. Parliament passed a series of acts known as the Coercive Acts, designed to punish Massachusetts and bring the colony to heel. These acts closed the port of Boston, restricted colonial self-government, and allowed British troops to be quartered in colonial homes. The Coercive Acts, far from quelling the unrest in the colonies, only served to further inflame tensions. The other colonies, recognizing that their own liberties were at stake, rallied to the defense of Massachusetts. The First Continental Congress, convened in Philadelphia in September 1774, condemned the Coercive Acts and called for a boycott of British goods. Section 5. A Giant Awakens, the Legacy of the Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party was a pivotal event in the lead-up to the American Revolution. It was a dramatic act of defiance against British rule. The British government's harsh response further alienated the colonists. The Boston Tea Party ignited a powder keg of discontent. Its legacy lives on as a symbol of American resistance to tyranny. It reminds us that even powerful empires can be challenged by the will of the people.